Okay, welcome back from the holiday break. Two things. Why you should never keep your source code online on this day and age, or at least your working code. And another question. What happened to good products? And something that I recently that I came to notice that it's actually sinking in more and more is the fact that people got used to things that don't work or crash after a while. Oh, it broke down. You can't expect much. It was cheap. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Warranty was actually introduced to protect people against drifters like that, building something that you know is going to break in the short term, so that you buy more and more and more. It's not just technology; clothes also jumped into that as well, which is to me not very comfortable, especially because I went through another set of monitors. I have one that is going fuzzy, and the other one is that you can actually see half of it in the image. It's right there. Um, yeah, it's an HP. It's another HP. Um, I'm not going to send it there because the last time I sent a laptop, they replied to me back saying that it was a bad use after my laptop went to HP I think 4 times during the warranty. Um, a series of faulty things. I had a graphical chip the soldering melted away. Battery balling twice. Um, uh, a hard drive that broke off. A monitor that the backlight just went off. A series of crap that it led to that. It was actually one of the reasons why I became such a huge fan of Apple's products is because they last. I'll actually have a dare from a friend. Buy a Mac. If you don't like it, I'll keep it for you, and I'll pay you the same that you paid for it. And I went, oh, okay, zero risk. They called me a few weeks later. So am I getting a new Mac? Nope, you're not. And I kept it. And I kept it, and it actually still works. It's a late 2013 MacBook Pro, which also has its full battery life. Now, the longest laptop I had was a Sony. It lasted for 4 years. It went through 4 hard drives, 3 sets of memory, um, and a few other things I can't recall. I think I also burned the Wi-Fi card as well. Um, and a USB that went dead. USB port that went dead as well. It short circuited. Um, and one battery that battery also went off as well. The MacBook Pro, a laptop, a keyboard actually that went off. Just that, and it's still working. I actually was afraid of it breaking down, and I got a new one because of it. Because it was is I saw people saying that it was taking 6 months to get a new one, and if that would broke off, I can't get 6 months without a laptop. It's not that's not reasonable. So I got a new one. The first one I ordered, it arrived earlier than expected, um, and they even took care of customs because I ordered it out of Apple.com, and since I'm from Portugal, um, I actually bought it cheaper than because euro was stronger. There was a few advantages of buying on .com as well, but it lasts. Monitor the monitors thing is not going for me, and my car it seems to be angry at me as well because I have an issue with the particle filter as well. So what happens to things that last? I don't know. I think everyone's after money these days. Increasing profits makes things make it so they are laid out so that they break down. I know for a fact that there are a few electronics that make it so that the most temperature sensitive components are actually in the hottest zones of the device so that they break down. So things don't last 2 years because that's within warranty, but they break down shortly after. I don't find that very reasonable, considering that they're not cheap. Now, even if they're cheap, something that is also starting to sink in is you got it cheap, so I kind of you can't expect much. I'm expecting something to work and at least it lasts. Whatever or not it has all the features that I required or the resolution that I seeked for, that's a compromise. A compromise of something that comes back wonky or has a few screws loose or has clues or evidences of being open, like that monitor over there that I just went through and realized that it was opened once, but not by me, is sort of edgy, right? It's fuzzy, it's weird. Um, or the fact that you buy a 4 terabyte, actually, I bought two NVMe terabyte drives. None of them were 4 terabyte drives. Huh? How about that? They're 3.5, so there's 500 gigs missing. When you make a negative comment on it on Amazon, they came back to me saying your comment is not constructive, and it has mixed language. How mixed can it be? You're announcing and charging something that is not being sold, and it's an Amazon Prime product, by the way. So it's things are going crazy, aren't they? So I went through this kind of rings a lot of bells for me because in development I got used to hearing something like security is a feature and the client hasn't paid for it. I think I said this once already in the previous video. But it's something that you hear a lot in consulting. It's also something that goes along with one of the first questions that the manager for a particular client will ask the first week after the consultant has started working for the client. And I mean after the first week, because after that, generally speaking, they won't talk with you ever, unless there's a problem. And that is, what are they using? What is it not working? And how can I make a profit out of it? And that's exactly one of the reasons why most of the consulting companies that I know don't even get anywhere near an NDA. Will make them go out of business. Now, security companies and security related companies, that's not a thing. So that in that realm, sanity reigns almost. But for everyone else, it's completely open. So things like you need to leave something so that we make people we can put people on the client maintaining this. So there needs to be work left to be made over an extended period of time. Yes, that is something that you hear when you're a senior developer or a senior architect. I'm building things for clients on consulting. So everyone's fooling everyone. And that's the first part of the rant for this week. it is starting to show as a mixed stories of what's going on around me, isn't it? Now let's talk about the other things that I usually say a lot in the training. That is one of the reasons why you should never put any of your code in anywhere near the web. For two reasons. One, if it's out there these days, crawlers will find it in a short period of time, similar to what happens if you put a machine with any kind of remote access protocol exposed to the internet. It will amaze you to know how fast that machine will be found and scanned and hammered and whatnot. So, and the same happens with code. Now, if you're doing any kind of assessment or red teaming, or even on the other side of things, and let's face it, if everything went completely secure, I would be out of a job. I really don't know what I would do with my life. To be completely truthful, or maybe I do, I don't know. So that was probably not ever going to happen. Um, so, but let's consider the fact that a lot of these things are relying on crawlers. Now, Microsoft no longer does bad operating systems, they also have their attempt on making their bad products safer or safe-ish, whatever you want to call it. Um, and They have one of the biggest source code repositories around. Now, there's also in the past we had a few websites where people shared or newsletters. They're still a thing, by the way. They're quite amusing to read because people take jabs at each other. It's really fun. Full disclosure used to be a main thing. It still is. It's a few folks still use that. ExploitDB and the like used to also be a lot more used. These days, you put things on GitHub and then go on Twitter and push it out, so to speak, or you just sell it, which is way more profitable. And one of the cool things about any defense product these days is the fact that it made exploits quite valuable, so valuable that it's not worth pushing out anything that is neither a bug bounty or if it's not a bug bounty, chances are you can profit a lot with it by selling it, and it doesn't even have to be sold to any shady organizations like we used to have mails from in the past. Now, back on topic, source code and publishing it. It's not a good idea. Why? Well, in the past, the main thing you had was fingerprints, the fingerprint of the code, and finding and cross-checking the code that you had. Say you found a malicious binary, and then you would realize that you came across something like that. You would go on a scavenging hunt looking for the source code that would resemble that, and eventually you find something similar, or the original pieces that was used to compose that piece of malware. It's actually something that's quite frequent-ish. Not that I have much experience with it, but from where I gather here and there, it seems to be one of the things that you end up doing. Now, these days we have the LLMs, right? It's actually more effective. I call it the search engine 3.0 because it's really good at mapping that thing, and it's mapping it in such a way where you interact with it with a more human relatable subject. You're not searching for keywords that make sense, and by accident you actually find your way of finding things And that way you describe a topic in detail, and that thing will eventually find a number of references for you. And that's really good for you if you consider the fact that it's sitting on top of a piece of technology that is so on the starting point that it's consuming an insane amount of energy just to make your weird queries and prompts into uh, uh, turning them into reality or information that you can use. If you exclude that fact, um, yeah, it's quite effective. Fast, I might say. Effective, I would consider that effective if they didn't consume as much energy as they do. Um, so right now we're in that phase where we have something that it resembles the first computer. It was of the size of a house, incredibly slow, and it did something that for that day and age was amazing. Um, and later on, it became so small that we have devices on our hands with quite impressive computation power. So LLMs right now and the computing power that is powering it is just the starting point. I would consider that um, something close to finished product if it consumed like half of the energy that it needs for each node. Right now, the rumor is that each node consumes about 700 watts of power for each GPU they use. And if you take the news that said they wanted their own nuclear power plant, the astonishing number they throw it at, a few gigawatts of power. If you divide that by 700, you can tell how many GPUs they wanted to run in that instance. So you have an idea of how much that. This also tells you how ineffective that thing is. It is fast. We can give you that, but it's not effective. It's fast, and it works, and it's making a lot of cash so that they can come up with uh, um, the new version of it. Because my guess is that was just by accident, but I diverge back on it. So that is something that one of the repositories is being owned, and it's not by accident Microsoft decided to buy GitHub. That being one of the biggest source code repositories, it's also where things going to be a lot of these LLMs going to learn from. Now, learning from there and from all the code that is there, the number of projects in there that are actually meaningful, decent, or shall I say it, correctly laid out, are not many. They're probably less than a handful. Um, the gross majority of the project in there spend half of the time not working, broken, full of issues. So they're funny examples of code that you can take hints of, but you need to do a lot of thinking before you actually use that anywhere near a testing or a quality level testing bed. So a lot of it will be just useful for it to understand the nature of coding, maybe. It will eventually improve, but we don't know how that selection is being made. But regardless of that, it will learn. It will learn across a lot of the things, and there's nothing guaranteeing you that they won't go over the private code repositories as well. So even though it's private to you, that doesn't mean that they won't go through it, right? So if you have anything that you think is property of our own, copyrighted or closed sourced, if it's online, you know what, I'm laughing already. someone has the access to that source code, and it's probably on someone's LLM. Now, this is almost tinfoil. You can actually say this is tinfoil talk, because you have no way of knowing. It's like the security of the cloud. It's essentially a myth, and no one really knows who's testing that and how. You just have to trust it. Hooray! Now, what else is in there? So if you're doing any kind of work coding wise, and you're afraid that your property might get stolen, your foo might end up in some LLM's database. It could be used against something that you want to go really well, say an assessment, for example. You want to get that thing away, as far away from online as possible. So, my case, I have a Raspberry Pi, which is not seen in image. It's behind my head, where you don't need more than that to store my source code. And it has a small disk in there attached to it, and it's USB disk on an SSD. And there, that's it. If it gets over there, my nodes and my source code is there, and I essentially can reinstate that anywhere I want. You can also make a clone of that drive and store it somewhere. And so in case that SSD breaks down, so that I don't lose my source code, something that happened in the past. But that's basically how I store my things. I don't have as much source code online as I used to. I actually deleted a lot of it. In a few weeks or months ago, I saw someone saying, "Hey, you're applying for, I think it was either a development or red teamer position, and your GitHub looks like this." And it was essentially someone's GitHub page with 2 or 3 repositories. And it said, "Hey, it says that you're a senior developer. I don't see that in here." You don't need to use GitHub to be a developer, or to use Git anywhere near it. You can have your own. So unless you want to push things out, and it's something that it would be worth sharing, I don't see any reasons why you should put things online if they shouldn't be online. It's an empty statement. So this one of the things that I have coming up is how you can reinstate that and create that with guess how Ansible scripts. Just because I'm going through an Ansible phase, and everything's Ansible right now for me. Truth to be told, I found out Ansible in somewhat a curious way. I used to use Fabric, Python framework that allows you to connect to SSH and run a few commands and a lot of hosts at the same time to run scripts all across. And I had to set up my things around the house. That's essentially how I ran for a while. And then I found Ansible, and I found it fun to use, not only because you're using something, it's not that fun using YAML format's a bit weird, but you have less dependencies to maintain. That ends up really useful, especially if you want to scale that into full-blown labs. Now, in my small reality, most of the time the things I have in Ansible end up being cannon killing a fly, but at scale they can be really useful, and self-documented, which is something that I really enjoy. I'm one of those people that says that if you're messing around with code, for which by reading it you can't tell what it does, you shouldn't be messing with it. So no comment on earth will ever tell you what you should be able to understand by reading the code. If you can't understand it by reading the code, you're messing with something that you shouldn't. And that's my take. That's how I roll, and that's how I progressed in my field. Get used to bad code. Get used to code that you don't understand. The reason why it laid out that way. That's basically how people think, and that's the expression of it. One of the ways we can express ourselves through code. We can have an idea of how confusing someone else's mind can be. Um, but as long as it's effective, it works. It is meaningfully understandable, not buggy, and maintainable, and it follows at least one um, pattern. So that's one of the books that have that side in there. Um, it should be okay. Now, on the other hand, if you're labeling things weirdly, you're following a pattern which no one understands for their life, and then maybe it's buggy as hell, only works on your computer. Maybe that's not your thing. Also, another thing that might be interesting is the fact that some projects don't work out of Docker. So Docker became the thing that you can actually make it work, right? I think this is going to be for another episode, I guess. But yeah, let's go over a few things. Take this as a hint for the what's to come. Let's consider this. So Docker allows you to have something contained that you can spin up and it's working, right? It's really useful if you want to create a test bed or proof of concept, right? There are companies that run on it, most of it for other reasons, but that's mostly it. Now, these days, you have things that only work inside Docker. Because instead of using that to be able to test something across a huge spectrum, they locked it in. So this works on this specific version of this runtime, on this specific version of this Linux flavor, with these sets of libraries, and that's it. My recommendation for you is to use Docker, but it doesn't work with Python 3.13 or 3.11. Oh no, we recommend you for Docker. And then you go on Docker and say 3.9. Well, that's arcane. Someone is slacking up. And then you have half of the internet's libraries in it, and you realize that a lot of those libraries are basically as old as they can be. And then you have collisions between libraries, and you need virtual environments. And not only need virtual environments, you need a whole environment to run it because it only runs on Jurassic stuff. Things going wild, isn't it? So something is meant to help out. I think it's going to ended up creating more problems that they started with. Not only they run as root, now they're also running on old stuff lying around. I think I'll go over that later in time. So that was it. Hope not to get in trouble for labeling a bunch of things that don't work, but yeah, it's been a chaotic week. See what's week. I didn't forget. I'm working on it. Actually, a different take on it. It's actually a bit different to record yourself doing something or editing things or building things like that, because then I really need to edit video. And that is something that is still a bit of a challenge. I will eventually get it. So get it right. So either that or do it in a full take. That will be fun. Okay, so that'll do, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.